The topic for today's panel discussion is connecting dots, sustainability, ethical conduct, ineffective communication, and system design. So just to kickstart the proceedings, we are doing business in an unpredictable world because of the pandemic and other variants which are coming in force. Success requires new levels of resilience and agility rooted in responsible practices. Sustainability is now a strategic business imperative. It is very important. Environmental sustainability is no longer just a corporate social responsibility issue. It's, of course, a business obligation. Opportunities and risks related to the environment now challenge these strategies and operating models of organizations across all the sectors, functions, and domains. In fact, environmental strategy choices as a subset of a broader sustainability agenda increasingly define a company's prospects in today's competitive marketplace. So with that, my first question is poised to Mr. Jagdish Belwal. There is a lot of discussion happening about sustainability in various different forums. How do you link it to business results? Do you see sustainability issues being discussed with customers or becoming a decision-making criterion among your customers?
No, that's a
Fairly loaded question.
That's a great question, Arul. In fact, let me take you back to one of my experiences. Now we were having this leadership offsite, and this was about. So we used to have a business excellence model, and this business excellence model had many requirements around the good things in life. The sustainability, CSR, and a lot of employee related initiatives and all of that. And once we were kind of done discussing it, everyone kind of agreed, and I was sort of the lone dissenting voice, not in a dissenting voice but a challenging voice, saying that listen, everything that we are talking about here, costs money, right? And if we do all of this, it's going to affect our profitability. Okay, therefore we should have a plan in place to basically also think about how do these things help us, generate a premium for our product, get better prices from our customers, and help us differentiate. So to me, that sets the tone for this discussion, which is connecting the dots. And I think the biggest, chasm I see, where you need to not just the dot, but you need to build a bridge, is in terms of why a business exists, okay, and what we are talking today in terms of sustainability, ethical conduct, and all. The business is all about making profit. It's of course about creating products. There's always a bigger purpose, but eventually, what you get rewarded or penalized is based on your profit, right? So the first dot that we need to connect is that if you as an organization are doing everything, from a sustainability and all the good things in life, the sustainability, CSR, etc., are you able to basically charge for it? Does it make you uncompetitive? Okay, so that's the first dot here that you need to connect. The second dot that you need to connect related to this is that, are you able to effectively communicate these values or these good things to your customers, to your stakeholders, for example, to your investors, right? When they see, let's say, a dip in profit or you not making sufficient profits, etc., etc., are you able to communicate to them? Are you able to communicate to your customers that, we are the ones who are differentiating from the rest of the products by doing all the right things? And I think that's the second dot to connect. Do you have effective communication with your stakeholders who will support you in this, right? And the third thing, eventually then connecting the dot, is that, how do you rewire your system, right? to make sure that you have the entire ecosystem working towards it and even trying to optimize it. That's my take on this.
Thanks, Mr. Jagdish. So just to summarize, like effective planning is the key, and rewiring is also important. And how do we also create more sustainable business strategy is by assessing the problem and defining the objectives very clearly, establishing the mission, and also crafting your own strategy which best suits you, and finally implementing the strategy and assessing the results. So moving on to ethical conduct. Ethical business operations are highly important to success, while unethical behavior can negatively impact a business's prospects. So unethical behavior has consequences for future business. Ethical behavior includes honesty, fairness, integrity, and understanding. There are several ways to encourage an ethical workplace culture, including establishing a company-wide code of ethics. So my next question is points to Mr. Dharmendra Roy. How do we encourage ethical conduct across organizations slash your own experiences?
Yeah. I think plenty of people are doing things the old-fashioned way, which I don't think even those strategies worked in the old days. The only reason why some strategies were adopted in the old days was because there was no way to measure how effective those strategies were. Today, we are in an era of high technology, very high quality researchers available to do basic and applied research. And we can really zoom down much more precisely on what works and what doesn't work. So I am sure all of you share, and everybody who's watching this video shares the same concern that I do, is when somebody says, okay, we're going to have a meeting on ethics, or let's say if this group discussion were only on ethics, I'm sure most people would not even tune in, because it's one of those boring, fuzzy, maybe slightly warm things, but then it's nothing exciting, and there is normally, other than moral suasion and a lot of hot air, nothing else, nothing specific, nothing exciting from an implementation point of view, from a results point of view, ever happens in any of these meetings. So that mindset has to go. Ideally, if you stop using the word ethical, that's even better, and just say, okay, we're focusing on efficiency, and obviously we're going to do it the right way, because if we don't, we'll have to shut down, we'll have the regulators after us, we'll go to jail if we don't do things the right way. That's obvious, so we don't need to keep on harping on the ethical stuff. And I train on a subject called invisible selling, which is my own brand of behavioral economics. And behavioral economics is just a fancy term for actual human psychology, real human psychology based on research. And we actually have data to prove that if you are going to get a team to pledge honesty before a critical project, they literally become more honest. Okay, it sounds real corny, but the huddle that soccer players have before a game, where they're exchanging motivation stuff, that really, really works in the short run. So instead of talking about ethics generally in warm, fuzzy ways, if you have a pledge that, okay, this is a project and we're going to stick to the rules and we're going to make a big success out of it and add some motivation to it, and you have that pledge and you do that pledge in a very enthusiastic way before a particular project, because the effect of that ethical behavior lasts only for a certain period. You can actually enhance this. This is research backed, and it's proved to enhance ethical behavior in a very, very good way. Another way is Daniel Kahneman, the first gentleman to win a Nobel Prize for behavioral economics, and who's written a fantastic book called Thinking Fast and Slow, which I think every chief executive in the world should read. And anybody who wants to understand his brain in a better way should read. He's talked about an experiment where in a UK university, people are allowed to go to a kitchen. They see food in front of them. They see a menu card which tells them what each food item costs. And then they are to put the right amount in something called an honesty box. Okay, they're not checked. They are told that we don't know whether you're going to actually put in any money or not, or whether you're going to put in less money, you're going to put in more money. We just trust you. So they did this experiment with a bunch of people. And then they changed something for the next bunch of people. So let's say the first group was A and the second group was B. The second group turned out to be much more honest. They were actually being checked. Looked at the amounts and looked at the amount of food consumed, and they determined that the second group was more honest than the first group. Now, when you talk to people from the second group and you talk to people from the first group and tell them to describe the room, both of them saw the same thing. So they could not, so those guys did not see anything materially different, and hence it would be very difficult for them to explain their behavior if they were asked, we know that you behave more honestly than the other group. Do you have any idea why you behave more honestly? Nobody would have a clue because they literally did not notice anything different in the room compared to group A. There was only one small difference, and that was something that just looks like it's come out from a horror movie or a black magic movie. They had pasted a picture of a pair of eyes, not at a prominent place, at an obscure place in the room for group B, that is the more honest group. Okay, so many people in group B did not even consciously see those eyes. They did not. But their behavior changed and they literally were more ethical and more honest in that they paid the right amounts. They were more honest on an average compared to the previous group. So what's happening is that the subconscious brain noticed the eyes, though they're not real eyes, they're pictures of eyes. It assumed that they are being watched. Okay, the people who saw that, they assumed they're being watched. It doesn't make any sense, right? Because first of all, most of them didn't notice it consciously, and secondly, it's just a picture. It's not a CCTV camera. It's not a real person. But they literally became more honest just because of that. So there are a host of behavioral economics strategies which are tried and tested, which can be used to enhance ethical behavior. If you're going to have seminars where you're just going to talk something warm and fuzzy and woolly about ethics, on the contrary, I think people will say, I'm now going to be more unethical because I'm angry. My time has been wasted.
Spot on, Dharmendra. Like ethics, it's a topic which most of the organizations around the globe try to miss, and it's not trickled down so effectively. And this also has lots of advantages. The advantages of ethical behavior in business are like pretty much rigid. So it helps in building customer loyalty. It also enhances a company's reputation. By doing that, it retains good employees and also creates positive work environments. And finally, it also avoids legal problems. So
yeah, companies like Airbnb, nobody, if Airbnb did not exist, and I would ask you, would you let a stranger into your house and sleep in one of your rooms, or actually sit on the couch in your living room? You would say, forget it, I'm not crazy. I'm not going to take that security risk. But because they build a trusted system where you see the rating that person has got before you let him into your house, suddenly it's about trust. So there's a book written on this by Professor Khanna from Harvard Business School called The Power of Trust, in which he's given these examples. So you're absolutely spot on. It definitely enhances business.
With ethical behavior and sustainability, the next important mode is effective communication rather than ineffective communication. So effective communication means business success. So it's very simple. Communication plays a vital element in every aspect of our lives, whether we realize it or not. It is defined as the exchange of information between two or more people, and we often assume that this refers to just written and verbal communication. But however, communication is more than just words. It can be your facial expressions, your body language, or the tone of voice you use. All of these things convey a message to the person you are communicating to. And the ability to communicate with people both inside and outside your organization is a key characteristic of successful business builders. Effective communication strengthens the connections between a company and all of its stakeholders and benefits businesses in numerous ways. A few to name, like it makes stronger decisions and faster problem solving, and it also gives you earlier warning of potential problems which may come in future. Increased productivity and steadier workflow, stronger business relationships, clearer and more persuasive messages, enhanced professional images for both employers and companies, lower employee turnover and higher employee satisfaction, and lastly, better financial results and higher return for investors. So, why do we need effective communication skills? The importance of communication is not surprising when you consider the staggering amount of time people spend communicating on your day-to-day job. In a recent survey done by Business Outlook, based on the responses from over 1,000 employees at Fortune 1,000 companies, they found that workers send and receive an average of 1,800 messages each day via mobile, telephone, email, and other digital platforms, or even with face-to-face communication. Some experts have estimated that the average business executive spends approximately close to around 75 to 80% of the day engaged in oral or written communication. So the need for communication skills is important in virtually everyone's career. Practitioners in big six accounting firms spend around 80% of their work time communicating with others, either individually or in groups. Likewise, engineers, doctors spend most of their professional lives writing, speaking, and listening. So that takes us to the last and important point of system designing, like why and how the need it works for the business. So the floor is open, like Jagdish or Dharmendra, anyone can take it up.
Sure.
Yeah, so let me
Go ahead.
take a shot at. So two, three thoughts here. One is you mentioned about verbal and non-verbal communication. There are studies. I don't know how much to rely on them, but I mean, let's get the spirit of that. That only 7% communication is verbal, 93% is non-verbal, and I think what we are losing out in the during the pandemic world is this non-verbal communication. Most of the conference calls happening without videos, etc., etc. Of course, genuine reasons, but so we are losing a bit of that, and I think we are rewiring as to how much to rely on non-verbal communication, and of course that's the reason we are all sort of trying to get back to the physical world. The other thing which I want to mention, Arul, is the authenticity. So I'm a big proponent of authenticity. That you may have any kind of articulation, any kind of body language, and any kind of effective speaking, but in today's world, in my view, when you speak, the audience very, 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 I would say fast. They are able to make up, are you being genuine or are you being theatrical, right? So that authenticity is very important in terms of believing what you're speaking in and being genuine what you are. If you don't know something, say I don't know. And I think this is to all the attendees, this will be my advice, that we got to be authentic in our in who we are. And I think that's the best way to communicate with everyone. Right? Thank you.
Somebody really loved your points there. And he's not doing non-verbal communication.
And I think the third most important thing is, the third most important thing is, when we say that this is between two people, or this is between one to many, right? One speaker to many audience. The most important thing in communication is not what you are speaking, right? It is what the other person is understanding, right? So we have to look at communication from the audience point of view. What is it that they are looking for? Where is it they are coming from? What is their existing context? What are their existing pains? What kind of answers they are looking for in your communication? Or, why have they come to you? What do they to receive a communication, whether it's a chat or whether it's a conference like this? And I think that really comes from what I call as empathy, right? So when we get into any of these conversations, one-to-one or one-to-many, I think we should approach it with empathy, so that, we are able to be very, our effectiveness of communication increases, not when we improvise what we speak about, but when we improvise on our understanding of, what people want to hear.
So they are also called the 7 pillars. We need to strive to be clear, concise, objective, consistent, complete, relevant, and lastly, the point which you told, Mr. Jagdish, understanding the audience knowledge. So the 7 pillars are very important for effective communication in business. Mr. Dharmendra, your thoughts on this, please.
Yeah, one of the statistics you mentioned is that a lot of time is being spent in communication. So that, I think, is something that needs to be cut down, because most of the communication is actually quite useless. It's actually being done because priorities are not set up right at the beginning. Things are not clarified. So if one is communicating lots of things, let's say there's an example of Southwest Airlines, which is the most profitable airlines in the world. Now, the reason why it became successful was because there was a maniacal obsession about reducing costs. The clients were very clear, this is a low-cost airline, so that was the anchoring. Nobody came expecting a business class or expecting a 7-course dinner in the plane. And the staff were also very clear that we got to think of low cost, low cost, low cost. So there was an example where staff member had a holiday, and somebody wanted to celebrate it by getting a cake and by throwing confetti. Now, there's a limit to how many rules you can have, right? As a company, I can't have a rule saying you can celebrate an employee's birthday, but you are allowed these activities and you're not allowed these activities, because there's no end to it. The manual will be 10,000 pages long. Now, because the strategic intent was we are focused on low cost, that's why we exist, that's how we earn our bread and butter. The employee, the manager immediately said no to confetti, because he said if there's confetti, then we'll have to spend money in cleaning up that confetti, because it's going to go all over the place. So it's very easy for him to say no to that. So instead of having 10,000 pages on do's and don'ts, it's called strategic intent. The strategic intent is that every employee should know is low cost. So then a million things need not be said, because he knows he's got to keep costs down. So that could be one way of reducing unnecessary communication. And the other thing, which for the life of me I don't understand why, is people are not doing right employee selection. They don't do right employee selection, and there's something called employee engagement. What the hell does that? What does that mean? Why don't you just hire employees who are already engaged? If they're not engaged, then don't hire them. How can you then again have a separate amount of communication trying to, you're paying salary to a person and now you're supposed to motivate him to do his best? And excuse me, isn't salary supposed to do that? So it's as fundamental as that. Most companies are really messing up getting the right candidate. Most companies in India are not even using psychometrics while they are recruiting people and depending on interviews. Research has proved that an interview is the worst way to select a candidate. I understand the legacy issues, so you still want to do an interview at the end, fine, but at least first do the psychometric tests. To the best of my knowledge, psychometric tests have never failed. A guy who is fit for the job, he may leave because he's changed his priorities in life. But if the psychometric test says he's fit for the job, he has the skills for the job, then he has skills for the job because the test is almost impossible to meet.
Yes.
So that itself, then you don't need to keep on communicating to him. Hey, what are you doing? Why are you late? Why are you going home early? It's all taken care of.
So with this, we also have to design the systems in a proper way, which also gives you a bigger impact. So the broad terminologies would be like identifying the business needs, planning and analyzing the need, designing a robust system, implementation and continuous follow-up. So a classic example is when the Indian government decided to ban the Chinese applications, we were all like jumping with joy. Within 36 hours, we had our own product called Moj into the market. And we did not know the response from the audience. So we couldn't prepare ourselves. But when it took off, that is when a proper, robust system has to come in place. Systems design requires all the elements of the systems to be identified priorly, like inputs, outputs, feedback, and transformation. In addition, it is important to recognize that an organization consists of many different systems, all of which interact, and that the transition between the systems can be particularly difficult to manage. So the use of systems design allows the compartmentalization of processes into understandable and measurable systems that can be diagnosed, redesigned, and implemented. This is of great value to complex organizations that are seeking greater efficiency and profitability. So your thoughts on it, Mr. Jagdish and Dharmendra, about a robust system design.
Yeah. So, Arul, when you really look at organization, right? Organization is a virtual entity. I mean, you can't put a face to it, maybe the logo. So what does this, we have to go back to the basics of what does the organization consist of. The organization consists of, there's a value chain which is operating, you are taking, let's say, raw materials or let's say human capabilities and you're converting them into a useful product, which you're able to sell to customers, right? Now, so there are people in between. Now, these people are doing a certain set of tasks and, with the industrial revolution came this whole thing of specialization that, you have people who will do some things extraordinarily well, and therefore you convert them into departments, right? So there's an HR and there's each of those departments, right? From sales and marketing to production to design and all. Now, the whole idea was specialization to do each of these things well. But then eventually what is the thing that is running across them is your organization processes, right? Now, I think why organizations get compartmentalized is that the threading of processes becomes weaker and the collation of expertise becomes, much more prominent. So we have to understand that the systems, unless they are connected, right? Unless they are seamless, unless they are collaborating with each other, the people won't be able to collaborate and, the people won't be effective in that. So for me, from a systems design point of view, I think the most important thing is that, you cannot have isolated systems. You need to have very, I would say, thoughtful design of how these systems interoperate with each other, how they collaborate with each other, how they hand off information, how the information integrity, information and process integrity is maintained, as these processes and information flows across them. So that's my thought on this.
Dharmendra, your thoughts on this, please?
Yeah, I since childhood, I always thought the world was a very poorly designed place. I get frustrated with virtually everything that I see around me. I think offices are very poorly designed, and this is all a part of ultimately system design, because system design is about physical design as well as process design. So I think whether it's a home, whether it's an office, whether it's a road, I think most of the designs are so bad, and maybe that's a limitation with me. But then I definitely think plenty of other people would also benefit if they look at alternate ways to make them. For example, let me show you something as basic as this. And the point of showing you this is to let people know that, yeah, even I've done seminars on mind mapping and design thinking for PricewaterhouseCoopers, and those sciences exist and they're very useful to design thinking and courses in creativity which help you to design better. But then you don't need to wait for that to start thinking about how you can make things easier and simpler. So if you look at this charger, and this is the wire, and this is the jack. Now, if you look at the white stickers, there's one, there's two here, so it's totally three, and this is the fourth one. These stickers have been put up by me. They were not there before. So now I know I got to put it in this way and not this way. So, and I know I got to put it here and not here. So I actually had to do this to save myself time, and I also save wear and tear on the equipment because I the wrong way. Now I don't know what is so difficult about this that neither an Apple or a Samsung has thought about this. This is Xiaomi, by the way, so I hope the chief executive are listening. They could have just put a different color here, a white color here or light color here, so that you don't waste time. Like, you're going to waste a few seconds every day, ultimately you're going to waste a huge amount of your life. So it's as basic as that. So people should not wait for people to become PhDs in design thinking. They can just start. And one of the worst things that I've seen recently, and there's a lot of research to suggest that shouldn't have been done, is the concept of open offices. It just looks very glamorous. I'm sure the architects make a lot of money by suggesting nice, fancy-looking offices, but it's terrible for work. It's terrible for business. It's terrible for the brain, because there are already enough distractions in this world. To add the further distraction, somebody just walking past and somebody playing music here and there, makes things worse. So the latest brain research says the best office would be a hybrid office. When you want to interact with others, you want an open space, but I'm sure at least for 2 or 3 hours a day, you need to complete. Right now, I'm completely focused on you. I don't have any distractions. My phone is on silent, and that's the way it is. So that's a must. So open offices is a big flop, and that's just another example of the reason to take design thinking more seriously.
So wonderful insight.
Bharti is there. Maybe Bharti, you want to say something?
So we just have 2 minutes. Yes, Jagdish, we just have 2 more minutes to wrap up the session, and we have 3 questions.
Yes,
so,
yes.
Rapidly, it's a rapid fire question. Just shoot it on behalf of.
Are we going to get a coffee?
So the first question you can pick. So does the strategic business plan includes a comprehensive inclusion of internal customers as well as external customers? How is it significant for the best organizational system design?
Yeah, I mean, let me take this. It has to, in fact, that's not an option. And I have seen that, the strategic business plan of a company actually has a big section on the organization development, on HR. The HR part of the business plan is a big one, because whatever you're trying to do into the future, it's going to be your people who are going to do it, and therefore you must have that strategy in place as well, right from where you're going to source talent to how you're going to retain it and how you're going to promote it to meet your organizational needs in the future. Now, what's also happening is that as IT is evolving more and more, there's also a big agenda about connecting your stakeholders outside of your organization. So connecting your dealers and channel partners or distributors, connecting your suppliers, creating a virtual system. And I think these are important things, how you need to look at designing not just the system for the organization, but the ecosystem for the organization.
So, Mr. Dharmendra, one quick question. Do you think ineffective communication is one of the major causes of failure for business models?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's like you calling a broker and saying you want to shut off the phone, so you say buy, and he actually goes and buys the stock.
Again, sticking to the same, Dharmendra, like how strongly is the issue of organizational sustainability connected to the ethical mode of business conduct in the intra and exterior environments?
It's both ethics and sustainability are absolutely critical, but then the way to approach it is not the conventional way, is not the boring way, is not the unimaginative way. It's like having in our MBA school, we were asked by a teacher, "What's the purpose of business?" And one guy said, "The purpose of business is to make money." Now that may be right, but then that's not a useful answer. If you're going to say, "I'm going to make the fastest smartphones," okay, now that's a valid thing. Now and you feel that ultimately it's going to make profits. So then you have something very clear and a process to focus on, rather than saying, "Oh, we're going to make profits." If we're going to tell a person what we do in this company is make profits, it's not a useful answer. It's not going to take you anywhere. So to just talk about sustainability and ethics and just bore people to death is not going to work. You got to give them something specific and say, "Okay, this is it. You got to follow this process." You're not outcome oriented, you're process oriented. Because you as a chief executive know that this process will lead to desired outcome. So if you look at people like Amazon and Unilever, they're incentivized a bit for the outcome because that's human psychology. But the majority of the incentive is for following the process. So you can't just say, "Oh, let's be sustainable, let's do this, let's do that." No. Just follow this process. And at the end of the year, how closely have you followed the process determines your rewards and promotions.
Wonderful insights, Mr. Dharmendra and Mr. Jagdish. It's my privilege, and I have learned a lot from you guys. Thank you very much for your valid time. And we have answered all the questions which has been posted here. And audience can reach us via LinkedIn or other social media platforms. Bharti, thanks for BizzTalk for organizing this particular panel discussion.